Intro music fades out. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into a story that's less about dusty attics and more about the creeping unease that can take root in the most unexpected places. It's a story about new beginnings, old fears, and the thin line between peace and paranoia. So, settle in, because this one's going to stick with you. Imagine Lena and Arlo, a couple filled with hope, signing the papers for their dream home on a rainy Tuesday. The house on Willow Lane was everything they'd wished for: light-filled rooms, ample space, and a private yard. The rain drumming on the metal roof even seemed to sing a strange, welcoming tune. This wasn't just a house. It was a fresh start, a long-delayed beginning, finally taking shape. They brought their borrowed cat, Pippin, who quickly befriended a patch of mint in the back garden. Every detail felt perfect, a promise of new memories waiting to be made. But their slice of heaven had an unusual neighbor. To the right of their plot, a gap in a half-finished garden gate led to a house that looked like a paused painting. The neighbor had abandoned a renovation, leaving raw wood and an unfinished fence, an open invitation, or perhaps a warning. From the street, the house beyond kept its secrets. Sometimes a curtain moved, a light flickered, but mostly it remained silent. Lena and Arlo even made a game of guessing why someone would leave a house in such a state. Was it money, illness, or a story whose ending they didn't want to write? Their first nights were filled with the small, comforting rituals of a new home: brewing coffee downstairs, leaving shoes by the door, naming flower beds like tiny kingdoms. As dusk painted the sky with vibrant colors, they'd sit on the low wall, Pippin nestled in Lena's lap, soaking in the peace. But then, a subtle shift occurred. That first week, they noticed a figure at the window of the dark house. It was just the shape of a head against a blue rectangle, unmoving, unflinching. Lena, out of habit, once waved, but the figure didn't respond. It was as if this faceless shape had forgotten the simple social gestures that connect us. One night, the figure stayed for a full half hour. Lena felt a prickle of unease under her scalp, and Arlo cleared his throat, a silent challenge to the strange, unspoken etiquette between them. They retreated inside, trying to fence off the feeling with the ordinary tasks of a new life. Unpacking boxes, laughing about a broken kettle. That laugh felt like the last one they could afford. The neighborhood rhythm began to shift in unsettling ways. 3 young men started cutting across the open gardens, using it as a shortcut to the street. Their faces were unremarkable, but their movements hinted at a casual ownership, a boundary crossed. One evening, they stood at the broken fence, watching Lena and Arlo in a way that felt like a contest. The youngest, with his hair in a sloppy knot, offered them a bag of what looked like white tablets, saying nothing more. The offer was bizarre, unsettling, and strangely threatening. Lena tried to lighten the mood with a joke about taking up gardening, but the young man's smile didn't reach his eyes. They left, like boys who had checked an item off a list. A week later, 2 police officers peered into the abandoned garden. They lifted a broken plank, then walked away without a word to the couple. Perhaps the police had more pressing matters, but the sight of uniformed men at the edge of their property made Lena's imagination run wild with multiplying stories. The first real escalation hit like a bang from inside a closed box. Lena was in the bathtub one night, the house feeling warm and safe. The hallway light, a golden pool at the door's edge. Suddenly, a loud bang cleaved the evening. She froze, heart pounding. Wrapping herself in a towel, she rushed to the spare bedroom, where Arlo hovered at the window. Phone in hand, recording. Through the glass, a man they'd never seen pointed at their upstairs window, then ran toward their house with terrifying speed. He checked the front handle. Not enough force to break it, but enough to convey his intent. Then, he darted back, through a broken plank against a vacant house, shouting at its blank windows as if awakening ghosts. They called the police, who came, took a statement, and left. The officers watched Arlo's clip, their faces illuminated by office lighting, and suggested more locks and less late-night wandering near windows. When the nameless man vanished, Lena and Arlo felt the ground tilt beneath them. That night, Lena placed Pippin on the bed, listening to the cat's purr, a tiny engine of comfort, as if its sound alone could stitch their world back together. But the small humiliations were just beginning. At 2 a.m., a whistle drifted from outside, an old, practiced note, the kind men used when they believed a woman was solitary and therefore vulnerable. Then came the tapping on their windows. Lena and Arlo checked their cameras, but found nothing. The recordings showed static where movement should have been. A camera aimed at the back gate mysteriously went blank, as if those who wished them harm had learned to present themselves in ways machines couldn't capture. Then, their Ring doorbell vanished. The metal frame lay on the doorstep like a removed tooth, the memory card gone. The police said the removal suggested intent. A woman on the phone, with the precise kindness of a professional who holds too many truths, implied that someone had returned to tamper with evidence. Lena started to see a map, with lines drawn directly to them. The masked men who came later that night changed the tone from menacing to something ritualistic. To figures moved from the side of the house like shadows that had learned human gestures. They shone flashlights on the windows, one holding an object that looked like a crowbar. The way he tilted his head at the window, a question without a mark. The mocked gesture of openness with his arms. It all felt like a rehearsal performed solely for the couple inside. The police told them staring wasn't illegal. They listened, took notes, and offered words that felt like steps to a staircase with no top. Lena felt conviction drain from her. The world became a place where law and terror existed in separate rooms, each with its own door. At night, she lay awake, imagining the blankness of those faces closing around them like a fog. She turned on every light, watching the shadow of the willow tree cross their walls. Pippin would sometimes leap at nothing, buzzing with the vibration of a cat who understood more edges of the world than humans did. One morning, checking their front camera as routine, the live feed flared to life. It showed a man in a black mask standing in front of the garden, arms spread wide, as if to bless or burn the house. His head tilted, listening to a hymn only he could hear. He stood there for half an hour, then walked across the street, remaining like a sentinel. He had no voice for the recording. When Lena called out to Arlo, they both whispered, the house suddenly too small for loud sounds. They started documenting everything. A notebook grew thick with times, descriptions, and Lena's small drawings of the same blank faces. This is where the story pauses. But for Lena and Arlo, the real work began. When facing such persistent and unsettling events, it's vital to remember you're not alone and there are steps you can take. If you ever find yourself in a similar situation, remember to prioritize your safety. Document everything, just like Lena and Arlo did. Videos, photos, detailed notes, and timelines are crucial. Reach out to local law enforcement, even if it feels like your concerns aren't being fully grasped initially. Persistence is key. Consider security upgrades, stronger locks, advanced camera systems, and even professional security assessments. And most importantly, build a support network. Talk to trusted friends, family, or even community watch groups. Sometimes, just knowing you're heard can make a world of difference. Your home should be your sanctuary, and everyone deserves to feel safe within its walls. What do you think Lena and Arlo should do next? Have you ever experienced anything like this, or have advice for them? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you found this story compelling, please give this video a like, subscribe for more tales, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next upload. Thanks for watching, and stay safe out there. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're rediving into a story that's going to send shivers down your spine and make you question everything you think you know about your surroundings. Imagine this. You've moved into a new home, and instead of settling into cozy bliss, you find yourselves caught in a performance. A strange, unsettling play where you're the unwitting stars. That's exactly what happened to Lena and Arlo. Their new house on Willow Lane seemed perfect at first, but it quickly became a stage for a slow, precise performance. And the main act, a persistent watcher. The neighbors were a mixed chorus of reactions. Some offered helpful, if sometimes vague, remarks. One old woman, with eyes that seemed to hold generations of secrets, simply said the house had always been a place people passed by quickly, a subtle warning that hung heavy in the air. Another neighbor would actively avoid their eyes, a clear sign of unease, or maybe complicity. It made Lena wonder. Meanwhile, the mundane rhythm of life continued. A lawnmower hummed, as if completely oblivious to the creeping fear. But through every recorded moment, the watcher returned. Sometimes his visits were small, almost procedural, like checking a meter. Other times, they were theatrical, a deliberate display designed to unnerve. Lena began to think of him as a type of weather, unpredictable, unavoidable. You might predict rain and none would come. But then some days, when the sky seemed stubbornly clear, something unsettling would happen. What frightened her most wasn't the violence that might happen, but the way the constant watching rearranged the furniture of her thoughts. It made ordinary decisions feel like choices on a stage, every move scrutinized. It made her study faces on the street, wondering if the person walking by had rehearsed their line, if they were part of this strange, unfolding drama. Inside their house, Lena and Arlo tried desperately to reclaim the ordinary. They made tea in the mornings, a ritual of normalcy. They planted mint again after their dog, Pippin, dug it up, a small act of defiance. They read until their eyes blurred, seeking escape in stories that weren't their own. At night, Lena would whisper the names of things she once loved, old friends, comforting memories, as if naming them out loud could anchor them against the tide of unease that flowed from the next garden. She kept waiting for the moment when the watching would stop, when a neighbor would slide open the garden gate and speak the simple sentence that would make everything right again. For now, the house breathed around them, and the watcher kept his hours. The garden gate remained unrepaired, a silent testament to the unsettled atmosphere. And Pippin kept his vigil on the sill, a furry sentinel who seemed to know more about the shape of menace than they did. Lena and Arlo were learning to measure fear like an unfamiliar flavor. They couldn't pour it away, but they could watch it, analyze it, and sometimes they could make a list and call it action. And that list grew. The next step, it said, was to keep recording, keep calling, keep naming the faces that were not theirs, the faces they didn't recognize. The next step was a silent vow. Do not let the watching become the story that writes itself. Because if they did, they'd lose themselves completely. The first month rolled by, and the mornings became eerily quieter. Lena stopped opening the curtains in the kitchen. The sunlight poured in too bright, as if it was trying too hard to prove everything was still normal, and Lena couldn't stand the pretense. Arlo, bless his heart, started leaving for work even earlier. His hours had shifted after a reshuffle at his firm, which meant Lena spent longer stretches alone in the house, with Pippin weaving between her legs like a nervous ghost, sensing her every anxiety. The neighbors remained polite, but it was that kind of politeness that barely concealed discomfort. They'd flash smiles that were a little too wide and say things like, "You two settling in, okay?" But their eyes, oh their eyes, would flick toward the abandoned house next door before quickly looking away. Lena pretended not to notice. She was getting good at pretending. It was becoming a survival skill. One morning, a spark of resolve ignited in her. Staying indoors, cooped up, wasn't helping. She needed to move, to feel the rhythm of people who weren't cloaked in fear. So, she started taking walks to a small cafe near the end of Willow Lane. The place smelled wonderfully of cinnamon and burnt espresso, a comforting antidote to the creeping dread. The barista, a tall woman with freckles and tired eyes that still held a spark of warmth, greeted her warmly the first day. It was a small, normal interaction, a lifeline. But then, on the third morning, something shifted, subtly, unnervingly. The barista smiled, too early, before Lena had even looked up from her phone. She said, "Good morning, sleepyhead," and tilted her head in a way that felt oddly rehearsed, almost mechanical. The words froze Lena in her tracks. Sleepyhead, that was Arlo's pet name for her, a private endearment. No one else had ever called her that. "Sorry," Lena managed to say, her voice barely a whisper, desperately hoping she had misheard, praying it was just a trick of the mind. The woman blinked slowly, a flicker of confusion crossing her face, but it vanished almost too quickly, appearing almost practiced. "Oh, sorry, must have mixed you up with someone else," she replied, a little too smoothly. Lena laughed, a brittle, high-pitched sound that didn't reach her eyes. She accepted her coffee, paid, and practically fled the cafe. She told herself it was nothing, a coincidence, a human error. People make mistakes, right? But she couldn't shake the way the woman's eyes followed her as she walked out, not curious, not suspicious, but something far more chilling. Knowing. It was as if she knew exactly who Lena was, knew that she knew, and that simple, polite interaction had been another calculated piece of the performance. Later that week, feeling the need to escape her immediate surroundings, Lena booked a rideshare to the grocery store, just to change her routine, to feel a sense of anonymous normalcy. The driver was a quiet man named Raphael, maybe in his 50s. His profile picture had shown him smiling, but in person, he looked drained, hollowed out. He hummed a tune under his breath that sounded oddly familiar to Lena, though she couldn't quite place it. Midway through the ride, just as she was starting to relax, he looked into the rearview mirror, his eyes meeting hers for a fleeting, unsettling moment. And then he said, "You ever figure out why you left?" The air in the car folded in on itself. Lena's breath caught in her throat. "I'm sorry, what?" she asked, her voice barely audible, her heart pounding a frantic rhythm against her ribs. What did he mean? Why she left? She hadn't left anywhere. This was her new home. Or was it? The question hung in the air, thick and heavy, pulling Lena into a deeper, darker spiral of questions and paranoia. Was this another test? Another carefully staged moment? This story is just beginning, and Lena and Arlo's journey is far from over. What do you think is happening to them? Who is the watcher? And what do they want? Are the neighbors involved? Let us know your theories in the comments below. If you found this story intriguing and want to follow Lena and Arlo's unsettling adventure, please hit that like button, subscribe to our channel for more content like this, and ring the notification bell so you don't miss our next upload. Thanks for watching, and stay curious. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving deep into a story that will send shivers down your spine. Imagine feeling watched, hearing whispers, and finding unsettling messages that only you and one other person should understand. Our protagonist, Lena, is about to experience just that, and it's a journey into a world of creeping fear that will leave you questioning everything. It all started innocently enough. After a particularly stressful day, Lena found herself in the car, trying to shake off the unsettling feeling of a strange interaction. Her husband Arlo, sensing her unease, just smiled faintly and turned up the radio. A soft piano piece filled the car, one Arlo used to play for Lena when she couldn't sleep. But instead of calming her, it only made her more anxious. She stared at the back of his head, searching for a hidden meaning in his grip on the wheel, but found nothing. By the time they reached home, Lena felt dizzy, her pulse refusing to slow. She locked the door, checked the camera feed, blank again, and sank onto the couch. Pippin, the cat, curled in her lap, a warm, grounding presence. That night, she finally confided in Arlo. "It's just small-town weirdness," he mumbled, rubbing his temples. "People talk. Maybe they overheard something." But Lena wasn't convinced. Overheard what? They said things only you and I would know. Arlo frowned, not dismissively, but defensively. He reached for her hand. "You're under pressure. We both are. Let's not build ghosts out of coincidences." Lena wanted to believe him. She really did. She craved that simple explanation. But then came the woman at the grocery store. Near the frozen aisle, Lena accidentally bumped into her. Muttering an apology, the woman leaned in so close Lena could smell something metallic on her breath, and then she whispered, "You don't get to disappear." Before Lena could even process it, the woman smiled, a chilling, knowing smile, as if she'd just completed an assignment, and walked away. Lena didn't tell Arlo about that one. Instead, she wrote it in her notebook, underlined twice. That note became a silent witness to her escalating fear. The next few weeks became a blur of almost normal days. She even ventured back to the cafe, where the barista acted like nothing had ever happened. Yet, Lena couldn't shake the feeling of being observed. She watched the barista's lips, noticing them move silently, as if reciting something under her breath. It was unsettling. One afternoon, as Lena left the cafe, a busker near the corner started humming that same haunting piano tune Raphael had played in Arlo's car. Lena froze midst. The man looked up briefly, his mouth curling into something that wasn't quite a smile. His eyes weren't interested in tips. They were fixed on her, studying, memorizing. Another piece of the puzzle, another chill down her spine. The following night, the terror escalated. Lena woke up to the television flickering on its own, static filling the room. On the screen, between blurs of noise, shapes appeared, faces pale and incomplete, melting in and out like reflections on water. Her heart hammered against her ribs as she fumbled to turn it off. Then, by instinct, she opened her phone camera and pointed it at the dark window. For half a second, she saw it, her own reflection, and behind it, another, a man's silhouette. She dropped the phone, a scream catching in her throat. When Arlo came running, she couldn't find the words to explain. He checked outside, found nothing, and returned, looking more tired than scared. "You need rest," he said softly. "Maybe talk to someone, a doctor, maybe." That suggestion stung, making her feel small, invalidated. "You think I'm losing it?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. Arlo hesitated. "I think we've both lost sleep." She didn't reply. The silence in the room, heavier than any argument. The seeds of doubt had been planted, not just in her mind, but in their shared reality. 2 days later, a text arrived from an unknown number, still hiding behind coffee cups. Sleepyhead. Her phone slipped from her hand. She deleted the message, but couldn't erase the residue of fear it left behind. The next morning, she changed her number again. The feeling of invasion was suffocating. That week, she decided to grocery shop at a different market across town, hoping to escape the feeling of being watched. But as she walked through the crowded aisles, she noticed someone moving parallel to her, a man in a dark hoodie, pretending to browse. Every time she stopped, he did too. She switched aisles twice, her heart pounding, then left abruptly without paying for the items she'd picked up. Outside, in the parking lot, she spun around. No one was there. She sat in her car for several minutes, gripping the steering wheel, trying to regain control. She started counting streetlights as she drove home, anything to create a pattern she could control, something predictable in her increasingly chaotic world. When she parked in front of the house, she saw something new taped to their front door, a playing card, the Jack of Hearts, bent slightly in the middle. On the back, a single, chilling line, "He never left." Lena called Arlo immediately, her voice trembling. He came home early, looked at the card, and frowned. Probably kids messing around, teenagers. But Lena knew better. "They know your nickname for me," she whispered, her voice cracking. "The driver, the barista, that woman, now this." Arlo stared at her for a long time. "You think someone's following you?" he asked, a new tension in his voice. "Not me," she said, her voice small, defeated. "Us." That night, their house transformed into a fortress. They set up new cameras, one inside the hallway, one at the back gate, another in the garden. Arlo double-checked the locks before bed, his usual calm replaced by a grim determination. They slept with the light on, a small comfort against the encroaching darkness. Around 3:17 a.m., Lena woke to Pippin growling at the window, a low, unfamiliar sound that sent a jolt of ice through her. The camera feed flickered on her phone. Static, then, for a brief, horrifying moment, an image formed, the same man in the dark hoodie standing outside, head tilted, holding another playing card between his fingers. Then the feed went black. She sat in silence until dawn, heart hammering. The image of that blank, tilted face burned behind her eyelids. When the morning light finally arrived, she found the card on the porch, just where she expected it, the Joker, folded neatly in half. The summer ended quietly, or at least, that's how it looked from the outside. Leaves began to curl at the edges, and the air over Willow Lane grew heavy with that almost autumn silence that makes you feel like something is holding its breath. Lena hadn't slept through the night in weeks. Arlo said she talked in her sleep, now names he didn't recognize, fragments of sentences, and once, a laugh that didn't sound like her own. They agreed they needed a break, just a weekend trip to reset, to escape the suffocating paranoia that had consumed their home. Arlo's aunt Renata had invited them to a family gathering up north near Lake Harrow, a place where her side of the family had rented a massive beachside property for years. It wasn't a fancy vacation, just a house big enough to hold 15 people, a yard that led straight into the water, and a promise that there would be laughter instead of silence, a chance to breathe. The property had 2 buildings, the main house with wide porches and big windows, and a smaller 2-story garage that had been converted into sleeping quarters. Lena, Arlo, and 3 cousins, Nico, Amelia, and Jules, were assigned to stay in the garage. It was a bit run down, with peeling paint and creaky floors, but that first evening, it felt like a relief to be surrounded by family, by noise. They grilled on the patio, played card games, and for the first time in months, Lena felt the muscles in her shoulders loosen. She looked out toward the lake. It was just water meeting, sky, no shadows watching, no faces in the glass. For a brief moment, she felt a flicker of hope, a sense of peace returning. But night, as it always does, has a way of folding comfort in half. The quiet of the old garage, the unfamiliar sounds of the lake house, and the persistent unease Lena carried within her. It felt like the quiet before a storm. What do you think will happen next? Will Lena finally find peace, or has the eerie surveillance followed her to Lake Harrow? Let me know your theories in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe for more thrilling stories, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next chilling tale. Thanks for watching, and stay safe out there. By midnight, most of the family had gone to bed. The cousins were laughing about an old childhood story when Lena offered to do laundry. The sheets in the garage smelled of dust and mildew, and no one wanted to sleep on them. The washer and dryer were downstairs, behind a creaky door that stuck halfway when opened. She carried the first bundle down, the sound of the machine humming soon, blending with the gentle pulse of the waves outside. She felt calm, almost proud of herself for doing something so ordinary again. When the dryer buzzed, she went to collect the sheets, still warm and soft, and headed back upstairs. The cousins were teasing each other, voices echoing off the walls. Arlo was in the main house, helping his aunt with dishes, and for the first time since they arrived, Lena felt safe enough to laugh. Around 2:30, she decided to run one last load for the others. She went down alone again, yawning, half asleep, the night wrapped in stillness. The machines clicked rhythmically. She leaned against the counter, scrolling through her phone. Then came the sound, a deep, heavy bang against the garage door, like a shoulder hitting metal. The wall trembled. Lena froze. She turned off the machine. The silence that followed, louder than the noise itself. She waited. Nothing. Just the wind, she told herself, except there wasn't any. She went upstairs, trying not to wake the cousins. But before she reached the top step, the second bang came harder, angrier. The entire stairwell seemed to shudder. Amelia shot upright in bed. What was that? I don't know, Lena whispered. Stay here. Nico, half asleep, muttered. Probably the door swelling old wood. Before anyone could answer, the third crash came, so violent that a picture fell off the wall. This time, everyone was awake. Jules grabbed a flashlight and shone it toward the window overlooking the driveway. The light caught nothing but the gravel path and the main house in the distance. Nico texted Aunt Renata, something's hitting the garage. Within minutes, footsteps crunched outside. Uncle Oscar, Renata's husband, appeared at the door with 2 of the older cousins. He looked pale but steady, carrying a small lantern instead of a flashlight. Everyone packed your things, he said. Come to the main house. Now, what's going on? Amelia asked. Oscar hesitated before answering. There's someone on the property. The cousins rushed to throw things into bags. Lena's hand shook so badly she couldn't zip hers. As they filed out, She glanced back into the garage and noticed something near the wall. A single playing card, face up. The Joker again. The main house was awake, now lights on, voices raised. Renata hugged each of them as they came in, whispering reassurances. Oscar and the cousins locked the doors and checked every window. When everyone gathered in the living room, Oscar finally spoke. When I went out, he said there was a man standing behind the garage, tall, still, like he was waiting for me to see him. When I called out, he didn't move, didn't run, just stood there. Then, he stopped, his eyes darting toward the window. Then he was gone. Gone where? Arlo asked. Just gone, Oscar said, like he stepped backward and disappeared. The room fell silent. Outside, the lake murmured against the sand, gentle and endless dot. Then Jules spoke softly. There's something else. We found cards, one in the garage, one on the porch. He placed them on the table, both jokers, both creased down the center. Renata touched one and drew her hand back immediately, as if it were hot. Do you think it's a prank? Amelia asked, voice shaking. Who would do that out here? Nico said. We're miles from anyone. The conversation turned to theories: an unhinged neighbor, a squatter, maybe a trespasser who used the garage when the place was empty. But none of them explained the missing footsteps Oscar swore should have been there, or why the air smelled faintly of smoke, though no one had lit a fire. By 4 a.m., most of them had drifted to restless sleep inside the main house. The garage sat dark across the yard, its windows black squares against the moonlight. Lena couldn't sleep. She sat on the couch, staring out toward the lake. Her reflection in the glass looked like a stranger's. She could almost see another face layered over her own, the watcher's face, the one she'd seen on the camera, the one that never blinked. Just as her eyes began to blur, a soft knock came from the porch. 3 times, slow, deliberate. Renata stirred on the other couch. Did you hear that? Lena nodded, barely breathing. Oscar appeared from the hallway, already holding the lantern. He opened the front door, cautiously, but no one was there. Just a faint outline of footprints in the sand, leading from the porch toward the garage and stopping halfway. Later that morning, as the sun rose, they decided to leave a day early. Bags were packed in silence. No one wanted to be the one to say it, but everyone was thinking the same thing. Something had followed Lena and Arlo there. Before locking up, Renata insisted on checking the garage one last time. She and Lena went together, though Lena's chest ached at the thought. Inside, the smell was different, damp and sweet, like old fruit. On the wall, someone had written something in ash. Thank you for letting me in. Lena backed away slowly, her pulse thrumming. Renata took her hand and led her out without another word. The drive home was long and silent. Arlo kept one hand on the wheel, the other on Lena's leg, as if to remind her he was still there. When they finally pulled into Willow Lane, the sky was bleeding pink. The house looked exactly as they'd left it. Ordinary, calm, quiet, but taped to the door, waiting for them, was another card. The Joker again, only this time a new message was written across it in block letters. Welcome back. When the watching stops drive back from Lake Harrow should have felt like escape. But the silence between Lena and Arlo was heavier than the air itself. The card taped to their front door fluttered in the early morning wind. It wasn't the words that frightened her this time. It was how familiar the handwriting looked. Blocky, deliberate, like Arlo's own printing from when he labeled their moving boxes months ago. She said nothing about it as they stepped inside. The house smelled faintly of dust and something older, like air that hadn't been breathed in for a while. Pippin emerged from under the couch, tail puffed, eyes wide, as if even the cat knew the house had shifted in their absence. They unpacked quietly. Arlo turned on the kettle, pretending normalcy, but his hands trembled. Lena found the courage to say what had been circling her thoughts since the lake. What if this doesn't stop because it isn't out there anymore? Arlo looked up. What are you saying? What if it's already here? She whispered. That night, she dreamed of the garage. The message on the wall, thank you for letting me in, played in her mind like a song she couldn't forget. She woke to find the bedroom window open. The lock was unbroken, the air still, but she could feel someone had been there. Pippin hissed at the corner of the room where no shadow moved. Days passed. Small, disjointed things began happening. The kettle switching on by itself. The television flickering between channels of static. The faint sound of humming when no one was home. Lena started keeping the curtains closed again, but she could sense eyes pressing through the fabric. One afternoon, while Arlo was at work, a knock came at the door. 3 taps, the same rhythm from the lake house. She froze, waited, then peeked through the peephole. No one, only the empty garden. Wind brushing the uncut grass. She was about to step away when she noticed it. Something small wedged in the doorframe. Another card. The Joker, bent, burned at one corner. On the back, written in faded ink, "The guest is patient." That evening, Arlo returned, pale and restless. He'd received an email from an unknown sender. No subject line, just a single attachment, a still image from their security camera. Time-stamped 2:13 a.m., it showed the 2 of them asleep, their faces half lit by the glow of the bedside lamp. And at the foot of the bed, a faint outline of a man. Arlo deleted it instantly, shaking, but it was too late. The image was already burned into both their minds. That night, they couldn't sleep. They left all the lights on, sat in the living room, and played soft music, just to drown out the quiet. Around 3 a.m., the front camera notification pinged. Lena's phone buzzed once, then died, the screen black. Arlo's phone froze on a single frame. The front garden, where the masked man stood again, arms stretched wide like before, his head tilted toward the house. Arlo whispered, "He's back." The lights flickered once, twice, then steadied. When they looked at the screen again, he was gone. The next morning, they finally called the police, not just to report the trespasser, but to beg for help. 2 officers came, one older, one younger. They listened patiently, took notes, and walked through the house. The younger one lingered near the back garden and frowned. "You said the fence was broken." Arlo nodded. Double quotes. "Then how do you explain this?" the officer asked, pointing. There, at the base of the garden gate, were footprints, but not leading in. They led out, as if someone had been standing inside their property all along, facing the street. The officers left with promises to patrol the area. But Lena could tell they didn't believe them. They said what everyone says when they can't understand fear. "You're safe now." That night, Lena started to pack. "We can't live here anymore," she said. "This house isn't ours. It's his." Arlo didn't argue. He just nodded. But when she went upstairs to gather their things, she froze at the doorway. Every mirror in the house, the bathroom, the bedroom, even the small one by the hall, had been turned around to face the wall. Each one had a playing card taped to its back. The Joker, the same handwriting. But this time, the message was new. "You can't leave a reflection behind." Her scream brought Arlo running. He tore the cards off, one by one, as if that could erase what they meant. When the last one fell to the floor, the house seemed to exhale, a long, cold breath that made the lights dim. They didn't sleep. They waited for morning, but the night stretched endlessly. The hours crawling like insects thought around for. There was a sound from the kitchen, a soft scraping, like someone dragging a chair across the floor. Arlo stood, grabbed the nearest thing he could use as a weapon, the metal poker from the fireplace, and motioned for Lena to stay back. He stepped into the hallway. For a moment, nothing. Then the sound again, closer now, near the counter. Arlo switched on the light. A woman stood there. She was older, her hair limp and gray, her clothes soaked as though she'd come from the rain. Though the night outside was dry, her face was expressionless, pale, and her eyes fixed on Lena behind Arlo. She smiled, not kindly, slowly, as if remembering how. "You shouldn't have let him in," she said. Her voice sounded like gravel. Then she was gone. No sound, no movement, just gone. They left the house before sunrise. They drove with no destination, following the empty road until the city lights vanished behind them. Weeks later, they found a small apartment in another town. No garden, no fences, no neighbors close enough to stare. It was quiet, safe, almost. For a while, things were normal again. Lena started drawing. Arlo stopped checking the cameras before bed. They laughed sometimes, until one afternoon, when Lena went to make tea and opened the cupboard. Inside, among the cups, was a single playing card, the Joker, written on the back, in the same precise, deliberate handwriting. The guest doesn't knock anymore. She dropped the card and stepped back. Outside, the wind rose, brushing against the windows with a sound that almost resembled a laugh. And in the reflection of the glass, just for a heartbeat, she saw a shape standing behind her, arms outstretched, head tilted toward the sky, waiting for her to notice. The tea kettle began to whistle, and the watching began again. The end.